And here's our panel.
I'm Marshall, and I had 2 rough weeks to start the season, but as D'Angelo Hall says, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure it out after a while.
I'm Dan, and this is my first ever Pick 6 show.
I'm Anish, and today I'll be on the panel, and hopefully I resume my hosting duties next week.
Yeah, my apologies. I kicked Munish off because I was not prepared enough to actually be on the show this week. Fortunately, our new guy Dan takes lots of notes, and he's got some good stats for everybody. Anyways, first game this week is going to be Tennessee at Cleveland. Guys, who do you think is going to win this one?
Well, both teams are 2-1, which may be a little surprising to some people, but I think this game comes down to the injury reports. Peyton Hillis probably going to be back after last week off with strep throat. Meanwhile, Kenny Britt looks like he's going to be out for the season. So I think just based on that, Cleveland's probably going to win this one. I also want to put out a plea to Chris Johnson. If you can please just get a touchdown this week, I would much appreciate it.
All right, so like Marshall said, Peyton Hillis out this week with strep throat. I read a report that he lost 10 pounds, so he's not the same guy that he was. Hasselbeck on the Titans is playing well this year, completing around 70%, throwing for almost 1,000 yards in just 3 games. Titans defense is also playing pretty well this year, giving up less than 90 yards a game on the ground. I'll take the Titans on the road.
Yeah, like these guys said, it's all about the injury report. Kenny Britt's out for Tennessee. I think that limits them on the offensive side. I'm going to have to rely on Chris Johnson. I like what Cleveland's done this year. McCoy's playing pretty well this season. I like Cleveland at home to win this one.
Our second game of the week, Detroit at Dallas. A surprising line taking on the Dallas Cowboys and the man, Tony Romo, playing with a punctured lung. Never thought I would say the words, the man and Tony Romo at the same time, but you know what? I just did.
Well, I never thought I would say those words either, and I'm still not going to say it. Detroit is off to a very hot start. Their D looks good. Matt Stafford to Calvin Johnson is just fantasy gold, as well as winning them games. And Dallas, they're still pretty banged up. They got an ugly win at Monday night, but they didn't score a touchdown. I'm not convinced, with all these injuries on offense, they're going to be able to do anything against this Detroit defense, which is much tougher than the Redskins. So I'm taking Detroit on the road here to go 4-0.
Look at these 2 teams on paper. They're very even statistically. But I just think the Lions, they got more confidence right now. They're playing well on defense. Matthew Stafford has emerged as one of the top NFL quarterbacks of the year so far. I think the Lions will keep it rolling this week. Lions on the road.
Even though Dallas came off a huge win last weekend, I still think Detroit and their defense and their prolific offense is going to be too much for Dallas to handle, and I like Detroit on the road.
Next up, we have Washington at St. Louis, and what my bet's going to be for the most boring game of the week. We're picking it anyway. Deal with it. Who do you guys think is going to win the snooze fest?
Well, the Redskins started off 2-0, but it already looks like they're about to fall apart. D'Angelo Hall is making crazy comments and lashing out at his defensive coordinator. They couldn't beat Dallas despite all the injuries and Dallas not being able to do anything on third down. I just think they're looking like ready to collapse. And the Rams come in, yes, they're 0-3, but they played 3 tough games. I think they're ready for a bounce-back game here. Steven Jackson's going to be back. Look for him to have a big game. Look for the Rams to claim this one at home.
I'm not going with Marshall on this one. The Redskins, they could actually be 3-0 very easily this year. And then when you look at the Rams, they did play 3 very good teams, but they got completely blown out in all 3 of those games. It was not even close. I'm going to take the Washington in this one.
I'm a fan of Sexy Rexy here, and I think he's going to get it done. He's been pretty consistent this season, and to many people's surprise, and I like them getting it done against the 0-3 St. Louis team.
Well, you heard it here first. Munish likes Sexy Rexy. Anyways, next game of the week, Pitt at Houston should be a good AFC game. Probably the Steelers' toughest game coming up for a foreseeable stretch. You think they'll have enough to go into their easy part of their schedule to win?
Well, Houston did lose their first game of the season last week, but they still put up big offensive numbers. And despite Pitt's defense, I know is really good, but I think Matt Schaub can pass against them. Pitt won against the Colts, but it really wasn't very convincing. And with Schaub and Arian Foster coming back, I think that Houston's going to be able to get just enough points to squeak by the Steelers here.
Since the Steelers' opening loss to the Baltimore Ravens, they've outgained their opponents with twice as many yards. But I think the Texans have an advantage in this game. When you look at their running game, they got Ben Tate, who's really stepped up since Arian Foster's gone out. They have an underrated quarterback in Matt Schaub. And one of the best special teams units in the country. Neil Rackers has not missed a field goal this year. Their return game is amazing. As much as it pains me to say this as a Steelers fan, I'm going to take the Texans at home.
I think this is actually a really close matchup. Both teams are pretty similar, but the Houston Texans are a very underrated team and are pretty much overlooked. But I like Big Ben in that offense with that pass rush defense and Troy Polamalu getting the win and getting a win at Houston.
Well, for our fifth game this week, we have New England at Oakland. New England's looking to bounce back after a surprising upset to Buffalo. Surprising to some. Surprising upset at Buffalo. You think they'll be able to bounce back against Oakland?
Well, on one side of the ball here, we have Tom Brady, who's throwing like ridiculous yardage this season. The other side, we have Darren McFadden, who's just running all over people. So I'm predicting another shootout here. I think, though, however, it comes down to the fact that if New England starts to get up in this game, which they're likely to do, Oakland's going to have to rely on Jason Campbell to get them back in, and I'm not convinced he can do it. So I'm taking New England on the road.
Patriots and Raiders, very intriguing matchup this week. The Raiders are another one of the many teams this year that was pretty bad last year, but off to a very good start. Darren McFadden's just been a beast. The first 3 games averaging over 6 yards a carry. I think the Patriots, if they put enough guys in the box to stop McFadden, I just don't think Jason Campbell's good enough to get it done. I'm going to take the Patriots.
I'm going to go against him here, and I'm going to pick the Raiders. I think the Raiders at home will have the crowd behind them. Darren McFadden's been putting up monster points, yardage, and he's on my fantasy team, so, I'm pulling from there. And I feel like New England's they're collapsing, and this is going to be a big win for the Raiders at home.
For our last game of the week, we have the marquee matchup of the week, Sunday night, New York Jets at Baltimore. Should be a great game to watch, a couple really exciting teams. Who do you think is going to come out on top?
Well, you got to expect this to be a defensive battle this week between these two teams. They're probably going to grind it out the entire time. However, if you look at the last 2 weeks, you see a couple surprising things. First of all, the Jets got run all over by the Oakland Raiders, so I look for Ray Rice to maybe have a big game and get in there. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco looked great. I know it was against the Rams, but still, maybe the Ravens offense can actually get a good spark going and find some points against this Jet defense. I think that's going to allow them to win this one.
We got a Sunday night game at home for the Ravens. They're going to be fired up. Ray Lewis will have them pumped up. When you look at these two teams, they're very, very similar teams, very even. I just think Joe Flacco's got the experience advantage over Mark Sanchez. Baltimore wins at home.
I'm going to have to go with the Jets on this one. I think there's no way that the Jets are going to come in here not fired up. They're angry, they want to win, and just they're going to be too much for Baltimore to handle. But it's going to be a close game, very defensive, good defensive battle. But I think the Jets pull off the win.
So when I said that was our last game for the week, as is typical with Pick Six, I actually lied. Special bonus round, Philly and San Francisco. Go.
Is this a joke? Philly, move on.
I'm going to take the Niners in this one. I don't like the Eagles.
I'm calling a tie here. McCoy's going to run for a lot of yards, give me my fantasy points. The Niners are going to come back and somehow tie it up, and it's going to be a tie.
Well, those picks are why we don't ever usually do special bonus rounds. These guys are terrible. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Well, I'm going to go against both of them.
I'm going to say Wrath.
We'll take the Raiders today. With the defense and the offense. Okay.
Ready? Thank God the camera's still recording.